ביתו, יבנה ביתו, ביתו בקרוב. אדירו, יבנה ביתו, יבנה ביתו, ביתו בקרוב.
Welcome to a special edition of the One Pesach podcast. For the very first time, live on location in the heart of the Englewood, New Jersey business district at Modern Bread and Bagel, one of the newest kosher restaurants on the block, putting Englewood on the map, the creation of our very own Orly and Josh Bornstein. Orly, of course, an Englewood native of the Gottesman family, Irene and Robbie, and we're very excited to be doing our episode here in their restaurant, sampling their delicious food, which I believe has no gluten in it whatsoever. It is all gluten-free and it is delicious. Gentlemen, how are you enjoying your breakfast?
I'm enjoying it immensely. This sandwich that I'm eating is just off the charts. The
What did
avocado.
you get?
I got a Haggadah mate, which is a egg sandwich with fried egg and avocado and cheese. Just super, super delicious.
I shocked the crowd as I sat down. Both of you got an egg on a bagel in some capacity, and I went for an everything bagel toasted with strawberry cream cheese. And I feel like in a certain way,
You've always been a
My
trailblazer like that.
yeah, I'm a little bit of an
Goldberg.
iconoclast. And I felt that it was thematically connected to what we'll be discussing today. Even though it's chametz, it felt
barely.
like the savoriness and the sweetness together, which is what attracts me to it, will actually tee up in such a beautiful way our conversation today.
That's nice. That's nice.
So I was
like that.
thinking it was very meta as I was ordering.
I like that.
See, that's the problem. You think too much when you order food.
I think about others.
Yeah.
And I think about when I order food. Yeah, I think about others.
Yeah.
What are the rules in your relationships about sharing food in a restaurant? What are the terms of engagement?
Well, for me, because I generally, like a 5-year-old, we really never have any issues because Shoshana will order adult food and I'll order 5-year-old food, which is why you'll see that my bagel has egg and cheese on it and nothing really fancy because I just like the basics. You could feed me chicken nuggets every night for dinner and I'd be a happy
Okay,
camper.
so you're incompatible, but that also makes you very compatible because
Yes.
everyone's got their lane. How about you?
I think that the only rule about going out to eat is there are no rules.
Wow, Fight
And
Club.
If I'm interested in something that's on your plate, I'm coming after it.
The fork just reaches over and appears
Um,
there.
No, but I feel like unless you're in a business meeting.
Is this a
which-
business meeting, by the way? Technically?
I feel like I'm among friends. I'm not only among friends at this table, but the Modern Bread and Bagel community is friends of the One Pesach podcast.
I feel like it should have been modern Orthodox bread and bagel. What do we think about that? Too
Oh, they're
niche?
good.
Too niche. Yeah, sorry.
What was I saying? So
You just, forks are flying at
Right.
your table.
so I'm
mayhem.
if I'm going out to eat with you, I feel like that's a testament to our relationship.
Yeah.
The extent to which I think would justify us sharing food together.
Got it.
Of course, the halachos of Zimun are such that actually food that we're eating needs to be shareable. So if each of us, so for just as an example, if each of us is muder hana on each other, which means that I've taken a vow, an oath, that I am prohibited from deriving benefit from the two of you, and you, Rabbi Poko, from the two of us, and you, Rabbi Goldberg, from the two of us, so all of us are eating food that neither of the other two of us can eat, Zimun is prohibited because there needs to be food on the table that's shareable. So I always feel when I'm out to eat with people, I try to be machmir on that. And
Some
beautiful,
shared
yeah.
apps. You definitely need some shared
That's
apps
beautiful.
for the table. Apps for the table.
Apps for the table. That's
Yeah, when Dina and I go out, we have an ongoing debate. I guess it's now about 14 years ongoing, which is when our food comes, immediately Dina wants to share. Do you want some of mine? And there's reciprocity. I get some of yours, and we share right away. For me, what I was schooled with, what feels right to me is, no, I ordered my food and you ordered your food.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat my food until I'm like 70% of the way through and feel like I've really had my fill. And then we'll share, like you'll take mine and I'll take, the sharing happens after I eat.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't take, right? It's like first you eat and then you share. Sharing is not the first moment. So that's like a little bit of a...
I'm with you, Rabbi Gold. We can quibble about the percentage. I'm not sure if I would necessarily say 70%, but
Right.
certainly I'm well into my own meal before
you
we
start
get to share with each
doling
other.
out
Yes.
a piece of your whatever.
Just because
Yes.
the food is shareable doesn't mean that we all own it together. I mean,
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
The real question is, does all the food always need to come out at the same time? That's another debate that rages at times in our house.
Yeah.
Like I sometimes prefer, if my meal is ready in the kitchen, bring it out to me.
Mm.
And when I go out to eat with Debbie, she's like, no, got to bring out all the meals at the same time. We could start eating together.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think I'm in the
it's-
latter category.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to eat together, you should eat together.
We
You
should
know?
cut that out then. I don't think we could be.
This is a non-confrontational podcast.
Exactly. In all seriousness, though, in case you've never eaten here, the food here is you're eating a gluten-free menu, and it's remarkable how good these things taste for gluten-free items. The muffins, the pastries, the bagels.
I'm a big fan of the chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah.
Yeah. We may have to get around to those at the end.
We turn now not to our one pasuk, but to our one passage from the Haggadah. We are going to be talking about the section of the Seder called Korech, the Hillel sandwich, as it's referred to in some English publications. Korech, where we put maror and charoses in between two pieces of matzah, thus comprising a sandwich. This was the custom, as it says in the passage that we recite just before eating it. This was the custom of Hillel during the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Haya korech, he would wrap, that's what the word korech means, he would wrap his korban Pesach and his maror in the matzah, so that he would be eating it just as it is described in the Torah, al matzos umarorim yochluhu, that the korban Pesach was eaten not just literally with the matzah and the maror, but actually on the matzah and the maror. So this is really a fascinating minhag that brings us all the way back to the time of our ancestors. And I'm sure there's a lot to discuss, both in terms of its meaning and in terms of how it's actually observed. For instance, rabbis, do you guys put charoses in your korech? Do you dip it in the charoses? Do you just dip it in the charoses? Do you put charoses on and then you push it off? How do you guys do your korech?
At this point in the Seder, it's dealer's choice. So I personally just dip. It's like a little bit of charoses, but some will order their sandwich to their specifications, and they'll like glom on, just lob on all that, all
Wow.
the charoses.
Do you have one person making the sandwiches for everybody?
That's a very good question. That's how I was raised, and that's pretty much how it remains. Yeah.
Wow. So we don't do that. We have everyone kind of assemble their own korech sandwich. My own personal practice is I will put charoset on and then shake it off, or maybe 1 spoon of charoset, and like they do in the hummus shops in Israel when they're hacking the lafa, they'll like take a scoop of hummus and like brush it on.
mhm.
I can't even describe that.
I think
Lather it on. So sometimes I'll lather it and then shake off the pieces and then sprinkle on some horseradish. So
that's another. What's your maror of choice?
romaine lettuce with some horseradish sprinkled on.
Yeah, for us, my father was always very serious about not just having horseradish root, but having fresh horseradish root. So the only thing that was prepared before Pesach was that it was peeled. But other than that, the entire root was brought to the Seder table, and it was sliced up at the table into small slices for maximum sharpness. So we ate those small slivers, not even grated. Of course, at a certain point, we realized we had to serve grated for normal people. And so we also had some grated maror as well.
My mother always tells a story about my grandfather. I never witnessed this myself. My grandfather would take a shot glass, take grated maror, grated horseradish, pack it into the shot glass, turn it upside down, take out the maror, roll it into a ball, say the bracha, and pop the whole thing in his mouth.
Wow.
And she says she remembers watching his face turn bright red and tears streaming down his face. I don't do that. But it's always fascinating to hear different people's minhagim. I've never heard anybody where like the balabayas makes the sandwich for everybody. So
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a lot of responsibility. Noblesse oblige. Yeah.
All right, so gentlemen, what do you have to say about korech?
This is, to my mind, one of the truly beautiful, in a certain sense, like countervailing symbols of the Seder, in a certain sense. And I say that in as much as so much of what we do at the Seder is in Seder. There's an order. It's linear, and we tell a story that is maschil begenus u'mesayim b'shevach. It begins in a kind of negative way and moves towards the positive. Everything is supposed to be misudar and chronological. And then korech comes, and it takes these symbols, and it mixes them all together. And suddenly you're having, in theory, the Korban Pesach, or a zecher to the Korban Pesach, which is the symbol of freedom, with matzah, which has, let's say, a dual aspect of freedom together with servitude. So it's lechem oni, poor man's bread, but also kibbutz pazon, we left in a hurry, so it gestures at leaving. And then you have maror, which is, I would say, 95% a symbol of the suffering. There is a small, even within that, an aspect of redemption. It has to be a spring vegetable, right? It references redemption, but it's primarily a symbol of the suffering and the slavery in Egypt. And Hillel would put them all together and have them all in one bite. That you can't just, Pesach, matzah, you can't just separate these things. They come as one. They're one package. And there's a lot that you could, I would say, unpack from that idea. But I guess I'll open with just the notion that life is not that linear. And the experience of even leaving Egypt was not that linear. And there was pain mixed with redemption and joy at the same time in one bite. And Pesach is about embracing the whole journey and seeing the place of the suffering in the redemption. And it's just captured by putting them all together and having them as one. I always note that at the end of Magid, we make this bracha before we make a Borei Pri Hagafen. And we say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher ga'alanu v'galas avosinu, right? Mitzrayim, right? Hashem, we bless Hashem who redeemed us and redeemed our forefathers from Egypt, and He brought us to this night. Le'echol bo matzah urmar, right? And the bracha continues from there. But we thank Hashem that we can sit here tonight eating both matzah and maror. It's an embrace of the whole experience and the whole journey. And in life, that's the reality. There are not moments of pure joy. At every person's simcha, there's a chassan getting married who has an older brother, or a kala who has an older sister who's not married. The person has a baby, they have the friend who's there davening to have children. And it also could have come after a long journey of trying. Life is complex. Life is the korech sandwich.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful and profound idea. And whenever I think about this concept, I think about Naomi Shemer's song Al Kol Eile, that my parents would play when we were little kids all the time. Al Hadvash V'Al Ha'oketz, Al Hamar V'Hamatok, right? For all of these, she prayed, for the bitter and the sweet, for the honey and the sting. The honey and the thorn. Morna li, Keli Hatov. Protect for me, my beloved God. Shem, who is good.
It's also interesting, just to further your point, Rabbi Goldberg, we say that you need to say these three things, Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. It certainly doesn't appear to be chronological. If we're explaining the experience of the Exodus from Egypt, the Cherus, Pesach, Matzah, Maror, you want to start with Pesach. Pesach is a manifestation of our freedom. Matzah is explained both as Lechem Oni, but also the manifestation of the Cherus, and then Maror, which is the last. So it's actually going in reverse order. We don't fulfill our obligation unless we mention all these three things. It's actually Dafka in the reverse order from what it should be, as opposed to Maror, Matzah, Pesach. The requirement of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim entails, in many ways, actually going backwards and appreciating only through the lens of the Cherus of the Korban Pesach and the duality of the Matzah can you really appreciate the Maror altogether. And that could be only after we've done that. And then, of course, eating the matzah, then can we be korech all of them together and appreciate all of the elements of our experience together and recognize Hashem's hand through it all.
That's beautiful, right? That the maror itself changes its meaning. It's like indeterminate. It was objectively bad until it somehow brought us to something greater, and then even the suffering itself is redeemed. The maror doesn't just lay the groundwork for the other things, just trying to process what you just said so beautifully. It's the last thing that we get to in a certain sense, because it's only in the rearview mirror after the redemption that we can look back and say, now I understand the maror in some sense. From a culinary perspective also, just the place of having something bitter or sharp, it elevates your experience of having the fatty, meaty thing, right? It's like you need it just as like a spice. That kind of the way that tracks with what it symbolizes, that it elevates the experience of eating the meat.
The Orach Chaim says that explicitly in his commentary on Shemos. He says, and this is part of the larger point, that really every element of the Seder has in it both aspects of Cherus and Avdos. So he says that Maror is what free people, what royalty seasons their meat with.
Right.
You put charif on your sandwich. That's what we do. When you're dignified, when you're eating a dignified meal, you add charif, you add maror to the meat to make it taste better.
Yes.
So al matzah samram yochlu. And from a symbolic perspective, that's certainly the case, that together with the maror, the meat tastes better. And together with the meat, you can actually appreciate the bitterness and the sharpness a little bit more. So obviously, when So obviously when discussing korech, there are really two elements to talk about. There's the symbolism and the significance of the sandwich itself, which Rabbi Goldberg, you focused on so beautifully. And then there's the accompanying text, the liturgical piece that we say. And the liturgical piece that we say is unusual and difficult if we actually take a closer look. First of all, if really Kain Asahil Bizman Beis Hamikdash Hayakayam, we should ask, what exactly is the Chiddush? What is the novel thing that Hillel is introducing? At the time of the Beis Hamikdash, everyone ate the korban Pesach, al matzos umrorim. Everyone ate the meat together with the matzah and the maror. Perhaps you could say the Chiddush, as Rabbi Goldberg just said, is that he combined all them together as opposed to just having them on the plate.
One bite. Everyone knows the rules.
So in addition to the fact that Hillel was doing apparently what everybody else did, at least at first glance, the pasuk that the Haggadah quotes that korech is the fulfillment of L'kayim masha ne'emar al matzos umrorim yochluhu, to fulfill that which it says, al matzos umrorim yochluhu, that we've already ate the matzah, we've already ate the maror, we've already gone through the Haggadah, everyone wants to get to the meal already, so no one's perhaps focusing on this as much, but the pasuk al matzos umrorim yochluhu is not a pasuk that is written about the Korban Pesach in the Torah anywhere. The way the Korban Pesach is described in Parshas Bo is Tzli eish matzos al marorim yochlu. We don't say matzos al marorim. The pasuk that we refer to in the Haggadah is al matzos umrorim yochluhu. That pasuk, using that precise language, is a pasuk that exists in the Torah not about Pesach Rishon, but about Pesach Sheni and Parshas Bahaloscha. And taking those two questions together, perhaps Hillel's Chiddush is actually something a little bit more subtle and profound. What Hillel is doing is, when we're eating the Pesach Rishon, when we're eating the Korban Pesach, when we're at our Seder, we should never forget Pesach Sheni either. In other words, the details and the nuances and the subtleties and the halachic intricacies of the Seder are so deep and so involved, one might be discouraged that they're not doing it properly. One might feel like they're getting lost in the details. One might feel like these rituals perhaps are a little bit too involved, a little bit too rigorous to actually find any meaning, and maybe I didn't do it properly. And Hillel's telling us after we've eaten the matzah, and after we've eaten the maror, and just as we're about to get ready for our meal, Hillel's actually telling us almost a little bit the opposite of what you're saying, Rabbi Goldberg. Forget about the past. The past is over. Now we are at Pesach Rishon, looking towards Pesach Sheni. We have a second chance. If you messed it up, if you messed anything up, there's always another chance to do it right. And actually, when the Gemara talks about the idea that 30 days before Pesach, we have to start learning the laws of Pesach, which is a Gemara Mesachim, Shloshim Yom Kodem Achag, Shoel Medarshim Hilchos HaPesach. That 30 days before Pesach, we actually have to begin learning the laws of Pesach. And what's the source the Gemara gives for that? That Moshe Rabbeinu was Omed BePesach Rishon Umasir al Pesach Sheni. And Moshe Rabbeinu, not 30 days before Pesach, was teaching about Pesach, but on Pesach was teaching about the holiday that was coming 30 days later, Pesach Sheni. In other words, as we sit at our Seder and have this moving, inspiring experience with the members of our family where we're connecting generations together, we're also, on some level, looking forward and saying our Jewish experience should not be contained just to what's going on here. We have another chance. There's more available to us. A month from now, we're going to have Pesach Sheni, where we can correct perhaps mistakes that we've made here. We're sitting at our Seder, and we're korech, matzah, and maror together. L'kayim masha ne'emar al matzos umrorim yochluhu. We do something at our Seder to recall and remind us of the notion of Pesach Sheni. That 1 month from now, there'll be another opportunity to get this right. And there'll be time after that to get it right as well, because the sum total of our Jewish experience and our opportunities for religious growth is not contained, is not restricted to just one night. And we need to know that. So al matzos umrorim yochluhu, remember as we eat the Pesach Rishon, the existence and the importance of the second opportunity of Pesach Sheni.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So I wanted to make a similar observation on Korech to Rabbi Goldberg's beautiful observation that the symbols of redemption, the Korban Pesach and the matzah in part, they're wrapped together with the maror, the symbol of suffering, to teach us about complexity, that joy can sometimes be coupled with sadness or pain, and we should still be grateful for what we can while being mindful of the entire picture. I want to apply this idea to Geula, to redemption itself, because I think there are sectors among the Jewish people that take a very black and white perspective on Geula, on redemption, that it has to look a certain way. For them, Geula has to look a certain way. It has to fulfill all of the different conditions that our tradition provides. But I think what Hillel is teaching us is that even a partial Geula is something that can be celebrated and appreciated, because the Korban Pesach is still wrapped together with the maror, with the bitterness. And appreciating the Geula, the redemption that we've been able to experience, at least in our times. Of course, it's not a Geula Shlema by any sense. We have not achieved a complete redemption. And the road to achieving a complete redemption is still a painful one. But I think it's a remarkable lesson in Hakaras HaTov, in expressing gratitude and appreciation to Hashem, even when things are not as they ought to be. And that doesn't mean we don't yearn for the rest of the Geula. It simply means that we know how to express Hakaras HaTov for what we have. And it's on brand for Hillel to be the one who's teaching us this lesson of appreciating a partial Geula. Hillel was known to be a person of balance and sensitivity and moderation and sophistication. And so this is certainly true to his values. In fact, I think that's the very message of Dayenu. We single out all of those different events, all of those different steps in our redemption, not because we only wanted that thing and we didn't want any of the other things that happened afterwards, but no, even that event alone, Dayenu, that would have been enough for us to express our Hakaras HaTov, our appreciation.
It's actually, I think that the way you brought it back to modern times, is so instructive. We're seeing miracles and wonders every day that are being brought about as a result of Medinat Yisrael. And sometimes, because that's the case, people want to experience that or process that through the lens of pure, unadulterated Geula.
Yes.
And don't even want to talk about or consider or reflect on some of the costs, whether it's costs to Am Yisrael or costs to our enemy, that these miracles have wrought. And actually, what the Seder is reminding us, what Hillel's reminding us is, no, there's maror in the Korban Pesach too. Even in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, when we perhaps weren't living in the unredeemed world that we're living in today, Hillel put some maror and matzah together to indicate that.
All right, this wraps it up, pun intended, for our special episode live here at Modern Bread and Bagel. We are so grateful to you for hosting us and for serving us such delicious food, and we wish you only hatzlacha, only good things. You should find much success here within our Englewood community, serving the greater Bergen County area.